Well, welcome to JDRF Celebration of Success, everyone. I'm Lacey Neighbor, Executive Director of the JDRF Nebraska-Iowa chapter. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come together today to celebrate the success of our efforts, the progress made. We have seen such great research advances and are excited to share those updates today. We will also recognize our amazing volunteers and board members. We are recording this and streaming it live on Facebook, so let's get started. JDRF has played a role in nearly every major T1D advancement made in the last 50 years. These breakthroughs, including drugs, devices, and cell therapies, are now helping people with T1D live longer, healthier lives. We continue to have a global impact on cures and improving lives by leveraging the money we raise to have the largest impact on the most people in the shortest amount of time. In FY20, our total research support was $111.5 million, which includes research grants and support, advocacy, and T1D fund. In addition to that, we leveraged our expertise, advocacy efforts, and partnerships to drive even more dollars to T1D research and therapy development. This year, through our work with other organizations, industry partners, and governments, we globally leveraged more funds for T1D research and therapy development than ever before. We drove over $500 million to T1D research and therapy development. For every single dollar JDRF dedicated to T1D research and therapy development, we drew another $3.50 into the field from peer organizations, industry partners, and governments. You can see this on the slide. The first slice is our total research support, which includes research grants and support for those grants, including advocacy and T1D fund. The next slice, the $27 million from non-governmental organizations, includes peer organizations like our friends at Helmsley. The industry partner slice saw the largest growth thanks to $164 million catalyzed by the T1D fund, which is JDRF's venture philanthropy fund. By catalyzed funds, we mean investments made by private investors alongside the investments made by the fund. We need this private investment to really accelerate the development of groundbreaking T1D therapies in novel companies. The US and international government funding slice includes $150 million from the Special Diabetes Program, which we'll talk about in a little bit in our advocacy. I also wanted to speak a bit on where our research grants are focused. One frequently asked question we get regarding our impact, how much do we focus on cures? Here we have two charts illustrating a 4-year cumulative view of how we deployed research grants and T1D investments. As you can see, during the past 4 fiscal years, $644 million has been directed to cure T1D and improve lives, with most of it focused on cures. Another frequently asked question relevant to our impact this year is, how did the pandemic affect our ability to devote funds and mission, including research? I'm going to turn that over to Annalise Walsh, JDRF Iowa Market Director, to answer.
Thanks, Lacey. So as you, next slide, Anna, if you would. Thank you. So as you can see, and as everyone already knows, we experienced some declines in total JDRF research support, supportive mission, and total revenue. These declines were obviously due to 4 months of coronavirus pandemic in the last 4 months of our fiscal year, and really how that situation impacted our in-person events. So I do want to point out the figures for total JDRF research support, as well as the supportive mission, are above those same figures for FY18, and we're really proud of that. As you can see, the supportive mission includes everything in total JDRF research support plus our community engagement, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. If you do count FY17, which is actually not on this slide, we have 4 consecutive years of total revenue of at least $200 million. And if you look at the last data set in this graph, the leverage funds for T1D research, you'll see that in FY20, our impact still continued to increase as we drew more funds and support really than ever from our peer organizations, our industry partners and governments. And I think that's really what makes JDRF stand apart we're able to uniquely harness the power of research, advocacy, and community engagement to really maximize every dollar that we can and put it where it needs to go, what Lacey referenced as cure research, and really accelerate our mission. Next slide, Anna. What do we mean when we talk about T1D research and development pipeline? And when we get to that slide, you'll see that the graph of that pipeline. What we really mean is every step required to discovery breakthroughs, really to cure T1D and improve our lives, plus every step required to get this into the hands of people living with T1D and their providers as quickly and affordably as possible. And that's really what this slide is illustrating. New therapies have to make it from bench to bedside or discovery to marketplace, however you want to word that. Plus, they need to be covered by insurance companies so that they're as affordable as possible, and so that people with T1D can choose the therapy and technologies that work best for them. And that's really an important distinction to make when we're talking about JDRF's progress and what we're doing. Additionally, we need to make sure that our healthcare providers and those living with T1D or caring for someone living with T1D are fully aware of their options and can choose the best technologies that are for them, and that their healthcare providers can help them do that. We talk a lot about our JDRF mission. On the next slide, we'll talk about our two key areas, and those are curing T1D as well as improving the lives of those living with it. We're accelerating and the development of these therapies into clinical testing, which is really where all the magic happens, and eventually regulatory approval and success is really going to be key to our success in both of those research strategies. And you know, we talked about the financials and we've talked about what our initiatives are, but what I want to hear about is what our next speaker is going to tell us about. Jill Rotella is our research information volunteer, and I'm so excited to introduce her to tell us about what has happened in the world of research. So Jill, share the magic with us.
Well, thank you, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I thank you for that introduction, and I am just as excited to share the research updates that I have and talk about some of our programs as well here at JDRF. So I'll start with teplizumab. Teplizumab is by Prevention Bio. It is an immunotherapy, and it is the first in history of prevention. This is so exciting because studies show that 64,000 people are diagnosed with T1D each year, and 90% do not have prior family history. Teplizumab has shown to prevent T1D from developing in at-risk individuals for an average of 3 years. Imagine the impact that we could have on that yearly average of 64,000 new diagnoses. And more exciting, teplizumab is currently under FDA review with an expected decision later this year. Leading research, Dr. Kevin Harold began his work in the use of immune therapies thanks to JDRF funding. JDRF has funded research on this drug for 20 plus years, including funding the phase 3 clinical trial. And the T1D fund has invested in Prevention Bio. And then the JAK inhibitors. JAK inhibitors inhibit or stop the destruction of target organs by halting the immune response. So I'm sure we've all seen those commercials or heard those commercials on JAK inhibitors that are currently available to treat autoimmune disorders such as rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. JAK inhibitors are also being used currently to treat cancers. So in T1D, the autoimmune response is slowly causing those beta cells to stress. And this is happening long before insulin dependence or a diagnosis. So the JAK inhibitors would keep the beta cells alive by decreasing the stress of the cell, and that eventually leads to death. And if used early enough, could prevent insulin dependence altogether. So I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to our T1D JAK inhibitor improved commercial. And I'm sure so is Bandit. Bandit is a clinical trial currently underway in Australia on newly diagnosed individuals ages 12 to 30. JDRF supported research into JAK inhibitors for more than a decade and has played a role in convincing Eli Lilly to support the drug for the clinical trial. So now we'll go to the next slide. So now I've just talked about these two very exciting treatments that are possible cures, both of them in early stages of T1D. But part of their success will need to be detection. So T1D Detect is a new general population T1D autoantibody screening program funded and launched by JDRF in December of 2020. It is vital that we screen everyone. We now know that antibodies can peak as early as 9 months old. The goal of this program is to accelerate these disease-modifying therapies, like the two I just talked about, and many more, through the pipeline. Also, it is to improve the health outcomes by preventing DKA at diagnosis. This is so crucial because an individual diagnosed while in DKA has shown to have poor long-term outcomes and increased complications. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again because it's staggering. 90% of people diagnosed today do not have a prior family history, and 50% of those are adults. In addition, family members of diagnosed individuals have a 15-time greater risk to develop T1D. Furthermore, research has shown that a virus can bring on an autoimmune response, resulting in an autoimmune disorder, such as T1D. Well, as we all know, we are in the midst of battling COVID-19 that has caused a world pandemic. This is a virus, and unfortunately, we must prepare for new T1D diagnoses to potentially rise. You can go ahead and go to the next screen. Thank you. So now we've discussed those two exciting treatments that could potentially halt or stop the progression of T1D. Now I want to talk about two treatments that could potentially reverse T1D. Now this is exciting news for individuals who have been living with this disease. ViaCyte is a beta cell replacement therapy. It's transforming the lives of individuals living with T1D. ViaCyte cells mature into human isolate cells, including glucose responsive, insulin secreting beta cells that are responsible for regulating the blood sugar. Beta cell death as a result of T1D is irreversible. And it is beyond amazing that preliminary data shows that ViaCyte's encapsulated therapy can help people with T1D produce insulin again. It's almost mind-boggling and exciting. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. JDRF underwrote development of the proprietary line of precursor stem cells used in their treatment and funded their preclinical trials. And Vertex. Vertex has breakthrough news. Vertex has launched its first clinical trial for a cell replacement therapy with the Infusion Med VX-880 and has received a fast track designation from the FDA. Phase 1 of 2 clinical trials has begun in people with T1D who have severe hypoglycemia or hypoglycemia unawareness. Hypoglycemia is often underreported and sadly unrecognized. Severe complications such as death can result from hypoglycemia. This is such a crucial clinical study. JDRF funded Doug Melton's work starting in 2000 to develop beta cells from stem cells, which he successfully did in 2014. T1D fund invested his company Sema. Vertex has acquired Sema to develop this technology in 2019. Now, there is a book about the company Vertex. It's called Antidote, Antidote, Antidote. And it's about the company's quest to transform the pharmaceutical industry. It's highly recommended. Go ahead to the next slide. I'll talk about VTB, which is adjunctive therapies. It's therapy in addition to insulin. This is so important to our individuals with T1D because it can improve the quality of treatment. It could potentially be life-changing for individuals dealing with insulin resistance. VTB Therapeutics received Fast Track designation from the FDA for their medication TTP 399. Long name, hopefully gets a cute name after it's all said and done. But it is an adjunctive therapy to insulin. TTP 399 is an oral once-a-day pill. JDRF funded and continues to support the trial and ongoing data analysis. JDRF is also working with VTB to move into their phase 3 clinical trials. And then I'll also talk about a little bit on psychosocial care. Now, even though we've had a pandemic, and we all know that we're here on Zoom today because of the pandemic that we've dealt with for the last year and a half, but even during the pandemic, we have seen so many exciting therapies and changes, and research is still in progress and still advancing as we're hearing right now. But we've also been helping those with psychosocial care because we know that isolation has been an issue and has really affected many individuals. So during a recent JDRF Facebook Live event, Becky Laus, PhD, discussed how parents can help their children or help themselves cope with the psychosocial challenges of living with T1D during quarantine. Dr. Lois is a pediatric psychology director in integrated behavioral health programs, as well as an associate professor of child and adolescent psychiatry at Hasenfeld Children's Hospital at NYU Langone. You can still see her recording at jdrf.org. You can also see and find many other resources at jdrf.org. You can also reach out to our local chapter with a simple phone call, and we can direct you with any of your needs. Diabetic retinopathy. Actually, stay on that one. Nope, actually, you were right. Sorry, go ahead. Diabetic retinopathy is the most common complication that develops from T1D. In addition, higher blood sugars can lead to heart disease and a decrease in kidney function. JDRF stays committed to improving lives today and tomorrow. Pumps, artificial pancreas technology, smarter insulins, smart insulin pens, and CGMs are creating tighter control. This is so important to our mission of preventing complications from T1D. JDRF has been a leader in bringing these to the market. The Medtronic 770G is now FDA approved for ages 2 and above. The Tandem is now FDA approved for ages 6 and above. Tandem's original algorithm was developed by JDRF-funded investigators, and the clinical trial was supported by NIH through the Special Diabetes Program. Omnipod 5 has now submitted to the FDA. Data from the clinical trial shows significant improvements in time and range in both children and adults. Smart insulin pens now have Bluetooth capability and work with smartphone apps. Bigfoot Unity smart insulin pen technology received clearance from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for individuals 12 and under. The system is for people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes who use multiple daily injections to regulate their blood glucose levels. The JDRF T1D Fund has been an investor in Bigfoot Biomedical since 2017. Eli Lilly has released Lumjev and now joins FIASP as the fastest working insulin, up to 10 to 12 minutes faster than the Humalog. And Dexcom is due to release the G7 early next year with a smaller device, faster warm-up times, direct-to-watch capability, real-time results, and use with the smart pins. We are in exciting times as we are on the cusp of changing the course of this disease by delaying the onset, possibly stopping the initiation of insulin dependence, as well as producing insulin in a person who no longer produces insulin. Even in the midst of a world pandemic, progress has moved forward, and I hope you are all feeling the passion behind this research update. Thank you for all that you do to help us keep this momentum going. Now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brock Nimmo, our advocacy team chair.
Thank you, Jill. First, I want to acknowledge my fellow advocacy team chairs, Shauna Durham in Nebraska and Kelly Honig in Cedar Rapids. We are so grateful for your leadership. As Annalise mentioned earlier, every research project needs to advance through the development pipeline as quickly as possible until it reaches its ultimate destination, into the hands of the community members who so desperately need it. You can see from this slide where JDRF's advocacy work plays an important part in this pipeline. Strong federal commitment to T1D research funding, improved prospects for regulatory control, increased healthcare access, and adoption of T1D therapies. Next slide, please. JDRF advocacy was originally created to secure federal funding support. You may not know this, but the National Institutes of Health cannot advocate for increased funding. They rely on organizations like us to do that for them. But over time, we saw the needs of the T1D community grow. Medical expenses for people with T1D are more than $9,000 per year, 3 times higher than for people without diabetes. Over a 10-year period, the cost of insulin has increased threefold. More and more therapies are moving through the pipeline into clinical trials, the regulatory process leading to approval, and then to healthcare coverage. JDRF's advocacy work has grown with the needs. Next slide, please. One of JDRF's top legislative priorities has been achieved with the enactment of a 3-year renewal of the Special Diabetes Program. The program, now funded until September 30th, 2023 at $150 million per year, will enable researchers to build upon the momentum in the type 1 diabetes research to date and explore new opportunities that have been waiting for funding. This wonderful news became a reality due to the tireless commitment of our JDRF volunteers and advocates through JDRF's mobilizations and campaigns. Most recently, 452 Promise to Remember Me virtual meetings between members of Congress and advocates of all ages and experiences. Next slide, please. Today, advocacy serves as the passionate, unrelenting voice for the T1D community, calling for coverage to preserve protections for those with pre-existing conditions with access to comprehensive health insurance at rates similar to people without such conditions. Coverage so that young adults can stay on their parents' insurance until the age of 26. Coverage that would prohibit insurance companies from setting annual and lifetime dollar limits. Support to close the coverage gap in most Medicare prescription drug plans. Affordability. All people with T1D should have affordable access to insulin, period. JDRF is passionately advocating on the T1D community's behalf and working with insulin manufacturers, health insurance providers, pharmacy benefit managers, and employers to make sure that insulin is affordable to those who need it. Choice. At the same time, people with T1D need the continued scientific innovation that has led and will continue to lead to more effective management and care. JDRF works so that people with type 1 diabetes have choice to use the technology that works best for them, from CGMs to artificial pancreas systems, as Jill mentioned. Importantly, JDRF has a comprehensive health insurance guide to help people with T1D navigate the health system. This guide is available in both English and Spanish and can be found at jdrf.org. Next slide, please. We don't have to tell you that insulin prices have skyrocketed in recent years and that this is unacceptable. No one should go without insulin because of cost. We are actively advocating to everyone who is able to impact the price of insulin and working with leaders in Congress to reintroduce legislation to address insulin affordability. Our focus is ensuring low and predictable costs for people with type 1 diabetes first and foremost, and all diabetes first and foremost. That may be accomplished by improving insurance plan design or ending the drug rebate system. We're seeing some results like insurers improving their cost sharing for insulin, a new Medicare program for $35 per month insulin, and manufacturers improving their assistance programs. More needs to be done, however, and JDRF will continue to work for systemic change. But we still need to do more, and you can help. Join us. Become an advocate today at jdrf.org/join. I will now welcome Lee Chaloha, President of the JDRF Nebraska Southwest Iowa Board, who will talk about our outreach efforts. Lee?
Thank you, Brock. I'm always so inspired when I hear about our research updates and the progress that has been made since my daughter was first diagnosed. And I'm especially inspired by our advocacy work recently in order to make insulin and other life-changing options available to everyone, regardless of their insurance provider or their economic means. So thank you, Brock, and thank you, Jill, so much. In addition to funding research and advocacy, JDRF supports the community through critical education resources, outreach, and support. Right now, I want to recognize our 3 community engagement chairs, Lindy Jenlowitz in Nebraska, Southwest Iowa, Jean Sheets in Eastern Iowa, and Sarah Campbell in Greater Iowa. Each of these 3 ladies help us with our outreach efforts in our local communities, which is so important. Thank you, Lindy, Jean, and Sarah. I also want to highlight a few of the ways JDRF supports the community through critical education resources, outreach, and support. Upon diagnosis, we connect with and provide resources for children, teens, and adults and their families through our Bag of Hope and our No Limits teen and adult care kits. My daughter Sadie, when she was diagnosed at 8, received the JDRF Bag of Hope, and it is filled with useful resources for both the child who is newly diagnosed and for his or her caregivers. Along with great educational materials, the kit includes Rufus the bear with diabetes to show the child that he or she is not alone while learning to get shots, to give themselves shots, and to test their blood sugar. And I can tell you right now that my daughter, even though she's 19, still has Rufus, and he has a special place in her bedroom still. A type 1 diabetes diagnosis can be overwhelming at any age, whether you're a child, a teen, or an adult. And therefore, JDRF's No Limits teen and adult care kits are free resources that provide information and tools to educate, support, and inspire newly diagnosed teens and adults. We don't just focus on children. We know that this is also a disease that hits in childhood, teens, and more adults now. I also want to tell you about our outreach volunteer program, which connects knowledgeable and experienced volunteers to those looking for one-on-one support. At any time of day, our dedicated online diabetes support team works to support those reaching out online in critical times of need. I think for anyone who's a parent of someone with type 1 diabetes, the middle of the night when you're up at midnight and 3 a.m. if you still have to do that, or not necessarily testing blood, but just looking at the CGM, which is a lot easier. Sometimes you're awake for several hours, and our team is there any time of the day to help you. Also, through our Type 1 Nation Summits, we provide opportunities for local supporters to access educational and inspirational resources in the T1D space and to make connections in our local communities. We are each other's greatest support, and so we will never stop working within the local communities. Please, thank you for changing the slide. In 2020, JDRF launched our Diversity and Inclusion Task Force, and JDRF is seeking opportunities to better address disparities affecting underserved members of the T1D community. JDRF recognizes that members of the Black and Indigenous people of color community are underrepresented in clinical trials. That is just a fact. And we are committed to helping recruit more diverse participants so that we can better help everyone that T1D affects. These efforts and other efforts help address our critical need to better engage, maximize impact, and improve outcomes for diverse populations burdened with diabetes. Thank you so much to anyone on this call who helps with our outreach efforts. To me, this is one of the most important parts of our mission. Today, we'd like to recognize members from our volunteer family for their outstanding leadership support and dedication to our mission. So it is my pleasure now to announce our first volunteer award. Our first volunteer award goes to Michelle Fisher. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Michelle. Michelle is a longtime volunteer for JDRF in Eastern Iowa. She helped establish our JDRF presence over 20 years ago. Michelle can be found working tirelessly all year on projects to further our mission. Michelle spent tireless hours in 2020 organizing auction and promise party logistics. Even with a new process for the gala, Michelle was there. There was no task too large or too small for her to take on. And any time that she has volunteered over the last 20 years, we can always count on Michelle to do what is needed. It is her generosity and support of our mission that really makes Michelle outstanding and extends to her service on the board of directors. Again, thank you so much, Michelle. You are inspiring to me, and we couldn't do this without you. And we couldn't do this without all of our volunteers. Now we'll hear more about our local impact. Please join me in welcoming Executive Council Chair and Greater Iowa Board President, Mark Rasmussen.
Thanks, Lee, and congratulations, Michelle, on that volunteer award. Well deserved. As many of you know, our chapters in the front lines of raising funds for innovative T1D research. You, the donors, volunteers, supporters, play the most important part. The progress that our chapter has made over the last year has played a vital role in accelerating our mission. As you can see from the slide, our combined walk efforts raised nearly $1.2 million. So thank you to our committee members, teams, and sponsors who made each of these walks possible. A huge thanks goes out to our walk leadership, Jennifer and Ken Allred in Nebraska, Aaron Pierce here in Greater Iowa, Charlie Rohde in Eastern Iowa, and Anne Marie Mendel in the Quad Cities. So thank you guys very much for your leadership. Couldn't have done this without your partnership and your leadership. So now I'm excited to share our next volunteer award and recognize Jennifer and Ken Allred. My slide's changing here, excuse me. Jennifer and Ken served as 2020 Omaha JDRF One Walk chairs during the COVID pandemic. Despite the unimaginable challenges they faced, they always kept the mission at the forefront and found amazing success. At the end of the walk season, the walk exceeded goal, with the Allred family raising over $70,000. So thank you very much for that contribution. Outstanding. Additionally, the Allreds are passionate about the advocacy, attending countless member meetings, and their son Jackson has participated in the JDRF Children's Congress. They take large visionary steps to ensure that our mission continues to accelerate, and are true servant leaders who write thank you notes, make phone calls, hold meetings, and share their story publicly. Jennifer and Ken are passionate, committed, creative, and determined volunteers who are instrumental in our shared mission to cure T1D. So thank you, Ken and Jennifer. Like all of our events this year, the galas, next slide, please. Like all of our events this year, the galas were held virtually, but they did not stop our incredibly generous communities from raising more than $1.7 million. Each of these inspirational evenings featured videos from our T1D community, special messages from our sponsors and donors, auction and Fundicure programs. Thank you to all those who supported the galas, our committee leaders, donors, and sponsors. And a special thanks to the Dolison family, the Werman family, and my wife, Megan Rasmussen, Katie Cohen, and Nancy Kammer here in Greater Iowa, the Fight family and the Slezik family, and the entire steering committee in Nebraska, the Loras family, and Nettie Nugent in Eastern Iowa. Our chapter has a lot to be proud of, and I'm honored to work alongside each and every one of you. And thank you for everything you do for our chapter. Now it's my pleasure to present the next volunteer award to Mike and Nancy Kammer. Mike and Nancy are committed and passionate about JDRF. As a matter of fact, the reason why I'm back engaged with JDRF is because of Mike. Mike has been instrumental in the success of corporate sponsorship. He's always looking for new donors and willing to share his story. Nancy has served as the gala chair for many years. She's an amazing leader, sharing her ideas, donating auction items, supporting JDRF's mission, and giving her time to ensure the event is a success. They're willing to help with any project, whether it's delivering watch party packages, picking up items, and yes, even cleaning the storage room. So thank you for that, all the things you've done for Greater Iowa. We're truly grateful for everything you've done for us. Next, I'd like to welcome Josh Baines, President of the JDRF Eastern Iowa Board, who will talk about RIDE.
Thanks, Mark, and congratulations to Mike and Nancy. I'm just going to do a quick wave on video. I'm in the basement of my new house and have internet troubles on Zoom sometimes, so I don't want to risk sounding like a robot, so I'm going to kill my video. So there, now you see me, now you don't. So this ride, the ride this year was held virtually, and thanks to all those that rode. We had 181 riders across the chapters, raised more than $225,000. So we want to give a special huge thanks to our ride leaders listed here and coaches. We are grateful for your continued efforts on this program. It's a big job and we just couldn't do it without you. Now, in a typical year, JDRF is the Ride to Cure Diabetes. It's a destination cycling event that takes place all across the US in special locations. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. It's a good time and very inspiring. It doesn't matter your level, and it's a time to come together and raise funds for JDRF and take part in a weekend-long celebration that leads up to that ride. Now, the ride will be virtual again this year, but we will come together on August 7th for a team celebration ride at the High Trestle Trail in Ankeny, Iowa, which is just on the north side of Des Moines. So register today, contact the chapter if you want more information. Now I'm excited to share our next volunteer award and honor Tom Florian. Tom is a true T1D champion, riding for his wife. He continued his social media campaign of multiple rides and fundraising requests. His enthusiasm for the ride helped keep this event in the forefront, even during a COVID environment. Tom is also a member of the board of directors and a passionate advocate for our mission. Thank you very much, Tom. Next, I'm going to pass it back to Lacey.
All right, thank you, Josh, and congratulations, Tom. And thank you to everyone who volunteered or donated to these events. Now I want to take some time and recognize our amazing board members whose service has ended. We appreciate how much time, effort, and passion you put into your role. Your work will have a lasting impact on our mission. Each of these members on this slide has helped shape the future of our organization, and JDRF is forever grateful. Next slide, please. As those members retire from the board, we pass the torch to the next group of leaders and welcome our new members. I'd like to give a special thanks to Brian Cohen, Mitch Rogers, and Dustin Toner, who served as our nominating and board development chairs. Board members are selected because of their qualifications, passion, and ability to meet the current and projected needs of the chapter. Thank you and welcome to our board of directors. We look forward to working alongside you. A key to JDRF's success is the commitment of our leadership. Thank you to the incoming Executive Council. Special thanks to our incoming board presidents, Mark Rasmussen in Greater Iowa, Rob Pantiano in Nebraska, Southwest Iowa, and Stephanie Rupert in Eastern Iowa. Your leadership will ensure that JDRF continues to further its mission to cure, treat, and prevent T1D. This concludes our program today, but thank you all for joining us. We are united by a common mission, a world without T1D. Together, we need to grow our community, inspire more people to take action, and yes, raise more money. Because the more people we bring into our shared vision, the sooner we'll achieve a world without T1D. Thank you for all that you've done and continue to do. Hopefully we can be together in person again soon. Thank you, guys.